In this first section, mostly first half of the Harmonies du Soir, the Liszt Etude, we can hear the impressionism of the French impressionists already announced, how their harmonies blend, how they are daydreamed, how the resolutions don't need to go to the resolutions, from tensions to resolution. The idea that the chords are here atmospheric, mood guides, and the melodic line, the tip, highlighted tip of the chords. To start with the beginning, it's strikingly meaningful for the pianist to play very close to the keys with overholding. Each group of two, in order to create a sense of extracting the melodic material from the chordal material, not nor legato, but more like And I think this kind of chordal connection is very striking, because Debussy hasn't yet written things like where the chords, the chorale and the melody exist. This is before. I think Liszt is playing with the resonances of the night sounds and colors and moods and atmospheres and parfums and fragrances. Like the Baudelaire poem will speak of Harmonies du Soir. Night harmonies is not just the harmonies, it's the harmony of nature at night. How you listen to the elements, how you have a dense and small song and this reverent arpeggiations. There is something extremely porous about these chords, even when they're very loud in the moment of poco animato arpeggiato. Naturally, the problem is to ménager in French, to manage to play the voice in the syncopation. Is always meaningful because it's against the beat, and the problem is that the beat is arpeggiated too. So by the time you arpeggiate the beat with the thumb of the left hand and the melody with the fifth finger of the right hand, or fourth, if you can reduce it to 4 parts, it will be when it's so spread. And to avoid making it chopped by the alternation of the two hands, as well as to be overly spread by the arpeggiation. Just here is a succession of constantly replayed chords with little difference. It blends too much, the material, so it has to have a very tightly arpeggiated left hand and a more displayed arpeggiated right hand. Playing the soft part under with precise fingers from inside the keys, and then with the trigger of the fifth, fourth, only voice the top, not as much as the thumb in the left hand. You can hear in the secondary voice with a chromatic descent in the middle voice of the left hand. But secondary less. What? Arpeggiations, regardless of their speed, would be generous, heartwarming, hugging the elements in a generous and very harmonious Harmonie du Soir, night harmonies environment. Chopin, in his Etude Opus 1 of, 25-1, the harp etude. He uses the fifth finger of both hands together, and inside equivalent amount of inner notes, harmonization and inner arpeggiation. Here it's off the beat. And mostly the arpeggios only go up, so it's like waves that go up, from down up. So you have to, in Chopin they go around. And in this case, this kind of element of syncopation is what gives it also the sense of propulsion. It's constantly waves after waves, waves after waves, going forward. In the section that follows, he has left hand playing mysterious fifths. Mysterious because they're unidentified for the mode. Is it major, minor? We don't know. But we will with the right hand. So it's like a canvas on which you place the paintings, brushes, and the paint. G major, E minor, C major, and then in B, which in fact is the dominant of E, but with a minor 6 and a major 3rd. So it's half major, half minor, sunset minor. It's not the bright B major. Because it goes ultimately into the 3rd section, which I haven't played yet, which is the aria in E major. This is an intimate moment of melodic line with accompaniment that is more discreet. We never hear it's rumbling, even if it's pianissimo, and the chords place themselves. And I think they should be voiced. Of course, one could argue that if he wanted a melodic line, he could have written filled with harmonies and notes and the melody. Just like he did in the opening when we had the first time the melody. The idea of the chords is more to incorporate the harmonization in the melody. It's not so much harmonic as much as like a drum mode, maintaining the pressure of the expectation, which will be ultimately the dominant for the aria. And after the aria we'll have a recap of these chords in more intensity with 2 against 3. of sound, the generosity of the blossoming of all these elements, which are so mysteriously distant in the beginning. It's to note that the beginning starts with this alternate octave in the left hand, which already is giving a rhythmicity, even if spread, to this mysterious opening. You could have done a tremolo. You could have done a trill. You could have done a pattern. Of course he didn't, and this way we have this resonance in 2 octaves that sort of brings the resonance like sort of a sound carpet. This way the harmonies can be heard by themselves, and then the ostinato, and again. I would say more than sang is spoken. I'd like to tell you so much something so meaningful to me. It's easy to always put words on the non-necessity of words. The music is the word. So this introduction is mysterious and distant, to note that this octave, alternative octave, reminds me a lot of his Funerale, with a more dramatic effect and dissonance, the 9/8 suspension. But here in a more tender way, and not one can always extrapolate many things about the choices of a composer in terms of disposition, display, even especially so range. But most of the time we don't know why, we just appreciate it, and because we love it, we compare it to other things we love, and we isolate elements that allows us to perhaps better serve it, better present it, better integrate it to the whole piece. It's not just playing one chord well, or this arpeggio well, or this pedal change well. It's to organize it as a whole soundscape, like a painter would do a landscape. For instance, when the melody starts at an introduction in the cello top part, in the thumb on the left hand, but not always the thumb. Inevitably it cannot be dry, because anyway one can hardly hold all the notes without pedal. So by putting pedal, we can put it in the harmony, and when we have passing tones we have to take it off. Some people play short pedals between each 8th note as a little glue or a little atmosphere, like puffs and puffs of air. I find it very difficult to do while trying to produce a direction of the line. There is a phrasing over all this group of like 16 chord melodic notes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 1. Of course it's easy to do in 2 hands. Ostinato and the bottom ostinato, which dress it up between A flat and D flat. So inevitably we have to use the pedal, and the hopeful acoustic combination with if it's a resonant hall will allow us to play with less pedal. But if it's dry, like in this room, acoustically, we have to put this half semi pedals at the same time blend, merge in traffic, and use the resonances as a source for the food itself. So who decides when you have too much sauce? The ear. But I think the ear that searches for the melodicity more than for the harmonization. Drops by two are almost a reminiscence of the Baroque lament. As a sigh, as an expression of intense emotion, whenever the opening was by 16 chords, here is by 2. Inevitably, it changes the pace of the harmonic change, but not only the mood. It's more pleading. In the dialogue, that is the reassurance of the A-flat major redundancy. And the recomplaint, this time in Neapolitan 6, harmonization redundancy. So to play together these chords and voice the top, we have to practice staccato the bottom. To play quick arpeggios, we have to practice straight thumbs or perhaps diagonal thumbs, thumb rather than thumbs, to allow to pass over it for this overlapping chords that are so displayed in their disposition. I'll Scriabin later. And if we do the flat thumb, then we have to lift the wrist for the passing or turn the. So the problem is to avoid these gestures that brusquely bring accents we don't want to have. We want it to be smooth and continuous. So we do. You want to play inside the keys when you start, not articulate from above. And then the last note will get out of the piano and resonate like a sitar. Or guitar, or any harp with low or guitar, plucked instrument, on top of which are nested those diminished sevenths favorite of his. This is what I was mentioning earlier when I got confused in my speech between tensions and releases, or releases that constantly don't come because more tensions are created by the release. That's what you do when you play constantly with diminished sevenths. You maintain the expectation very high of something to happen, and then you release it just this chord, and immediately the whole series of next chords bring us to another harmony. So it's like almost taking a lift, dropping to another level, and then discovering something absolutely magical, which is this arrival of the bright D-flat major that shines in the night of these dark harmonies. In the sonata, Liszt uses this kind of moment where he brings the grand contentment, we would say the plenitude, or the, in a spiritual sense perhaps, the elevation of the spirit. The redemption after the struggle. Obviously it's not in this key in the sonata, it's in D. Heroism. Here it is more, of course at night, more diluted, more daydreamed, more unreal. But you still prepare it with a big octaves. redemption theme would have been welcome, but in fact all this build up in the etude to this apparent climax sort of doesn't climax, because the piece starts at that point displaying its arpeggiated, syncopated, octaved also, yes, and above the 10th and 12th and 15th chordal melodic line, which we heard a little bit more discreetly in the opening. And here it's so this whole drum roll preparation. More subtle than that. It sounds popish. Other than blossom, generosity, warmth and giving, I don't know what else can be told about this section, other than be careful not to overstretch yourself and go to a further note than already the far-fetched arpeggiation that he already suggests in writing. Exactly like this is natural acted by mistake. So the melodic line and the bass line have six parallels, six dialogue in syncopation. In minor. Since the beginning, we're in D flat major, but first on the dominant with Napolitan sixth, and then finally the theme. And then after that long section of shared arpeggios, we find ourselves in the dominant of E minor. To rebounds on G major, this standby page. Basically, this whole page is only a transition, embellishment over embellishment, redundancies over redundancies, to prepare for the aria. But basically, we've reached the aria on page 2. So the poco piomoso, dolcissimo, triple pianissimo, una corda, all these whisperato elements no more thematic, just mood oriented, creating an expectation. And the major returning always by drops of thirds. Sorry for that. perhaps a little bit playfulness, but also by musical conviction, think that if all the chordal elements are voiced only in the top, it becomes expected and perhaps color-wise a little bit predictable. And I think that after that rightful emotional scream of the high register, Beethoven's peak of the 109's first movement, here is the same in the high register, very intense also. It has to be voiced by the top, and I think in the bottom octave range it could be voiced in the thumb. And perhaps a bit doctored voicing, but I don't mind, because I think it brings a different highlighting to the same material in this harmonic static situation of this dominant of E pedal, dominant ostinato. We understand at this point of the etude that the etude is about chords, the etude is about arpeggios, the etude is about singing, the etude is about organizing one's materials. I must say that the harmonization was so rich that when it comes for the melodic line of the aria section, that really soft harp is the only word that comes to mind. So the key to it is how much pedal, because if the pedal is there to dress and accompany the harmonization, then we have the melody played always alone. The next melody will carry the residue of the next melodic note or the preceding harmony. So we'll have a little bit of a connection of the elements. And if we want to hear the melody suspended in the intimacy of the song, of the soul for oneself, he could have chosen of course not, he would never use an Alberti bass, he would use perhaps chords, probably not, he would have used patterns or arpeggios, obviously, but the fact of using the harmonization after the melodic note is heard alone, so in retrospect we fill up the melody with harmony by the time we change to the next melodic line. That's why I recommend to take off the pedal before the next melodic note, to have this moment of nano-silent moment where you hold your breath and you don't have the pedal holding the chord. Well, if we do it slowly, we have to wait. But if we do it faster, comes before the harmonization and stays alone for a nano moment before to go to the next note, and the inside the keys played arpeggios are just there, a light dressing in comparison to the intensity of the chordal progressions we just heard before. So it's a nice contrast of keeping in the middle of the heartland, so to say, of the etude, this moment of intimacy. A serenade, a night song, accompanied by guitar or lute, like a troubadour singing the song of love. ship. The leap of the sixth, love, and the leap of the octave, passion. And the speed of the accompaniment arpeggios could vary when it's intensified from the calm, just drop by drop display. When it becomes dramatico, the arpeggiation can become more dense and intense, more tight. And then we turn into the major with a hope this time, because love in major is hope, with the lift of the sixth, the intimacy of the third. I mean, he would have used differently these operatic effects, where the sixth for the leap, where the fifth, or the octave, or the unison. In example, would have gone. But he already had an octave before, and the only leap of six before was minor. Note for the reinforcement of the element of necessity to re-say, retell. He could have done to make it a melodic line of step motion. But he prefers to remain very simple in the sense of the step motions after the leap. The leap is so dramatic, the octave, and then the rest drops down, trickling by steps. So this way only the leap remains striking. Octave leaps everywhere. But it's good to know why not, or at least it appears obvious. Then you cherish the leap of the octave and the trickle down by the beat, also by the beat, by step motion. Neapolitan sixth after all these tortured intervals. And here is the summit of intensity of emotion, not by loudness but by non-resolution. This operatic effect to have a whole sort of vocalise on the Neapolitan. Purposely suspended in the expectation, major, minor, half minor, because of the minor sixth and the major third. So the tutti picks up after the middle section of aria, and the aria remains unresolved. I would like to tell you how much, and we don't know what. I love you, I hate you, I leave you, I come, I wish, I would like, I dream, I wish, we need. No, we don't know. In a way, all this was preparing us for that. Ultimate sign of late Romanticism, where the effects of the delayed elements, melodic like the appoggiaturas, become suspended, as I said in the opening, he had many chords that are tense after tense, so there's no relaxation between the tensions. And here it's, the more I say it, the worse it is. Really we need. Well, in any case, we cannot recompose, we should not recompose, we won't recompose the piece. What we will do is serve it and realize that no matter what, this ending will remain unresolved. And we have this amazing chordal progression. But softly, with triads, and then innerly rumbling fifths, and now the fifths become pounding chords of dramatic effect in triplets, played inside the keys with a crescendo diminuendo inside, gracily. 600 violins playing warmth. Of course, Liszt is Liszt. In the best sense of the word, the heroism in music, the tone poem in music, the epic tone poem in music, even if it's within an etude-shaped short form. But the genre is developed to its extreme in terms of emotional palette. We go from so far mystery to this dramatic effect of chromaticisms and alternations. But in lesser, but still very comparatively, an etude by Chopin in the Opus 10, number 9, when he goes turmoil in the left hand. It was a shortcut. In the beginning, we rather also left-hand ascension of semi-diminished with overlapping displayed harmonizations, diminished seventh. Here. So the chromaticisms are here more about an effect rather than a modulation, because we don't really go in F sharp minor and in G minor and in F minor or F rather a different major back. we just go from degree to degree. Granted with secondary dominance, but the point of it is not to go somewhere through other places, it's just to drift away. Obviously he only did it twice. And last time. So this section with the real, if you can say the real climax, seems like we're climaxing since the beginning, but truly in hierarchy of climax, this it is. And the first chord is almost unrepeated, or just in the resonance to maintain its flame. And these like spikes, even like fireworks in the night sky. He doesn't have four hands. Hands plus. It would be almost circus-like to constantly go from one to the other. So the growth of the chordal elements really comes out almost like a, I would imagine, a volcano. Especially with a major 9. Of course, once you play chromaticisms with chords and you put pedal, it becomes smeared, messy, banged, ununderstandable in terms of harmonization. Of course, he wanted some of them, most of them, of these chords to be embroiled into each other in a way to have this kind of mass of chords. But at the same time, the pedal should allow to hear what we're trying to blend. So how do you do that? You voice? Or both? To give a three-dimensionality to these chords, they're not just a certain pianistic very excitement of just reactively demonstrating the chordal patterns with a rubato accelerando and ritenuto towards the higher note of the chromaticism. It's so predictable, and I think it's important to maintain its in the passion, excitement of the spontaneity, the integrity of the whole structure starting here. Reminds me of Mussorgsky trying the grandness of the Kiev gate. And here we have the same. First stop for the chromaticism is the dominant of F minor. So I would do this. Finger pedal, slide, second finger on the black-white keys, thumb in the left hand. And if it's messy, practice to have the fingers more straight and more facing south. Fork-like, suspended by the wrist, not tense, but just by the support of the palms, the muscle. Never surrender to that boom, easy banging, but always generous with grand feeling of like entering in the water and swimming and removing masses of elements with sort of grace in the grandness. And that just one different way of playing it with a little bit more impulsiveness. Who's to say it's right and who's to say it's wrong? Obviously it's on the moment of the spur of the moment, as well as the organization of the whole system between the melody that is sort of spread, the comment of the chromaticism in A flat major after F minor, the dominant is only octave. Prevail in the major chromatically, adding a little minor sixth just to add to the dramatic effect. All these effects are very wisely and not overwhelmingly constantly demonstrated. They're like a mastering of the dramatization with little dots where all of a sudden they justify the whole picture. If not, it'll be an exaggeration of everything, which I'm trying not to do with too much pedal. But at the same time, I appreciate the chromaticism of the chords, the chromaticism of the octaves, and the chromaticism of the octaves going in major chromatically. So it's different colorizations, and if not moods, and then the tension release of the appoggiatura chords. Oh, so many beauties. And of course that peaks to, well, everything peaks here. Who do a little more of that later in the of Scriabin or of Rachmaninoff's this didn't go there, but anyway, this chordal dramatic emotion, redundancy, expression, like here. This night's harmonies are perhaps in Napoli, because he really has a lot of Neapolitan sixths. It's probably a geographical nonsense I just said, because obviously Neapolitan sixths don't need Napoli to be used, but God, does he use them? It adds to. Just imagine without it. Has its meaning and where it comes. You have to valorize it, you have to hear it, you have to not, try to, even if I fail very often in my examples, but I try to keep the clarity of the elocution so I can hear those different shades of different effects and not just cover it in a huge pedal. So it's like a smoke screen at the end. Coda, what to do? How can we play louder than loud? He says sempre triple forte, at least the edition. That's just bang over bang. It's not possible. I think that it's best to drop again dynamically in order to rebuild something grand as it should be in my view. And try to play possible the chords, which is a challenge because you get to play flat fingers since the stretch of the chords is stretched. And if you play them staccato with the pedal, you have precision, but you don't have the weight and the heaviness evocative of string players, and you want to do that with a brassy left hand. Which is impossible to be done if you're already triple fortissimo and syllabically screaming each eighth note. No, 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 no. It has to remain grand and at the same time phrased and legatoed and almost supernatural of the piano sounds. Exaggeratedly imagining that it could create a crescendo of the held note. And beautifully so, when I mentioned earlier, how do we get to play more of a climax after we climaxed? Well, we don't. We return to a sort of like wounded in mid-air after all this sense of elevation soaring in the sky. Then this chord bringing us to the return by plagal cadence. Well, it's actually 2 and 1, but I think it's more of a 4th degree with added 6th because it's really a plagal cadence 4-1. Possible to organize one's progressive crescendo towards the peak, and it's very more difficult to manage to last all this page at the end, where is no more but a drop down of the intensity of the emotion, of the hard breathing into calm breathing, the soothing, the redemption, whatever you want to call it, but it has to last, and it's easy to drop at once and then just stay stagnant. All these elements of description for the interpretation are embedded in the score. I think it's in the arched imagination of the pianist on the spot, intuitively or by organization, to not drop at once tempo and dynamics and just stay there, but progressively so. So in other words, a good diminuendo, I can't speak. A good diminuendo is a delayed diminuendo. This wounded chord on top is like in mid-air. No. Thankfully, no. So we have to keep it from dropping. Mezzo rather than piano to the major ninth. The brightness of the major ninth with hope and the hopeless diminished 7th, minor ninth, chromatically. And still have room to drop dynamically, pitch harmonization by 2 bars. Reach the dolce armonioso piano here from that's why it's important to drop while it's still incandescent, warm, breathing, and still short breath for all this emotion of the peak that we reached. And then finally, only in the equal quarter notes, unsyncopated like in the opening. These ones, the appeased, surrendered. Let it roll, syllables to yourself. You probably improvised more than that, but okay, let's accept that today we do nothing like just nor just with the ear of our text. Or we can suggest it in the harmonization scolarization. This chord, the answer, this chord, the sharing, and this chord, the surrounding, and this chord, the closing, and this chord, the acceptance. Using the whole spectrum of the keyboard of his piano. This little codetta is quite striking. 3 chords, but in this position with 10th, which was the opening of our melodic line. He could have, for conclusive purposes, finish or with a D flat. No, he finishes not with a with the tonic. He finishes with the 10th. It's a harp etude, it's a chord etude, is an intensity of melodic line on the long gesture of the never sunsetting phrase. Probably it's also an etude for intelligent pedaling between the harmonization, the vibration of the harmonization, and the lengthening of this of the sound of the melodic line lyrically, unlike the decay of the instrument, as if we can transform the instrument from a harp to a singer to an orchestra of strings mainly with some brass, because of the elements that are so clearly disposed. And the imagination does it very well. We don't need even to explain it. I explain it because I would like to imagine that some of the sections have to be practiced in a way to obtain these effects, from close-up with hold and poke, rhythms, the precision, especially for the shiftings, that you have to prepare before you reach, so in order not to miss. So that you have a muscular memory of elements which have nothing to do with music in that sense, just the industry of playing the right notes. But then how much or not will you on the spot give rubato to the chords that are chromatic compared to the octaves? And not forget the melody. So in a way we don't forget, we just spread it so much and we feel it with so much feeling, and at the same time we bring it to this always better height. It's always about height, about elevation. Starts dark and drive to finish to the elevation. I think is a very obvious gesture of human necessity to elevate ourselves above our condition, hopefully, in the generous sharing, which is here the piece. Of course, it's an etude in colors as well, like everything of the Impressionism as well that will follow, or that takes over from these elements of resonant harmonizations. Naturally, the Liszt time piano was less perhaps brassy and energizing to play like today's piano, so more like a harp rather than symphonic orchestra. Of course, it was already a very beautiful piano, and he was a very beautiful pianist, and so was Rachmaninoff and all these magicians who transformed this keyboard into this volcano of emotions and colors and at the same time intimacy as well. What a beautiful exercise in imagination. Probably his Etude of Daydream in Night Harmonies. And because of the amount of arpeggios that are chords that are displayed in arpeggios, it leaves more than in other etudes room for interpretational spaces between the lines, between the notes, like we say for the writers. What is the meaning that is hinted between the lines that touches us emotionally, perhaps, compared to the facts we read, or the descriptive words that make us daydream? Here's the descriptive harmonies. So tone poem, of course it is. What else can it be? It's all this and so much more, while only what it is and fully what it is. And every time we think about putting some meaning on things of music, music itself is the meaning, and it carries its own universe for each of us individually. It's beautiful to share, and it's beautiful to practice, and it's inspiring and elevating for the spirit to work with pieces of such grand inspiration, of true generosity, of true humanity, of true sense of generous goodness. Even if sometimes self-indulging virtuosity, but that was part of the emotional package of a Liszt performance. That's what touched the audiences. And it's nice and amazing, it's almost miracle that out of a few pages written out we can reconnect to this without even, unfortunately though, have a recording of him play with his charisma. It's all about charisma in this music. It puffs and holds the construction of all of that. And of course ephemerally disappears after it's played.